All right, welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really deep question, inspired by the work of the philosopher Francis Fukuyama. What really separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom? And you know what? The answer might be found in something as simple, but as profound, as just choosing not to eat.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that seems almost childishly simple, but I promise you it unlocks a huge idea about what it means to be human. Forget opposable thumbs for a minute. What is the real, meaningful difference between you and a bear?
So here's the deal. A bear is basically a slave to its appetites. When it feels hungry, it has to eat. There's no choice in the matter. But you have this incredible, uniquely human ability to look at your most primal biological urges and just say, no. And that right there, that's the difference between being technically free, like a bear wandering the woods, and being meaningfully free.
This whole idea, this capacity to choose being uncomfortable, to act against our own immediate self-interest for something bigger, well, that's the hinge on which so much of human history really swings.
And Fukuyama, he puts it in a way you won't forget. He argues that a bear, even though it's totally unrestrained out there in the forest, isn't truly free. Why? Because it has no choice but to obey its hunger. It's basically just running on a biological program that it cannot, under any circumstances, override.
Okay, so what is this part of us then? What's that faculty that lets us override our own basic programming?
Well, to explain this, Fukuyama reaches way back to the ancient philosopher Plato and borrows this idea called thymos. Now think of thymos as the part of your soul that demands dignity and recognition. It's not your cold, calculating reason, and it's definitely not your raw animal appetite. It's that spirited part of you that cares about stuff like justice and honor and being seen as more than just a bundle of desires.
So where do you see thymos in the real world? Oh, it's everywhere. It's that fire in the belly of a whistleblower who speaks out, even knowing it could cost them their job. It's the drive that makes you defend an idea you believe in, even when everyone else is shouting you down. It's the part of you that just refuses to swallow an injustice, the part that says some things matter more than being comfortable. The bear, of course, has no thymos. All right, now let's look at maybe the single biggest example of this human superpower in action on a planetary scale.
That number, 1.8 billion, that's roughly how many Muslims every single year during the month of Ramadan make a collective, conscious choice to override their body's most fundamental signals for hunger and thirst every single day from sunup to sundown.
But listen, it is absolutely critical to get that this is not just some kind of diet. A diet just redirects your appetite for a physical goal, right? It's like being a bear that's just aiming for a different food source. Religious fasting, or siyam, is totally different. Here, you're not eating precisely because you're hungry. The hunger isn't a problem to be solved, the hunger itself is the point. It's a pure demonstration of self-mastery.
You see, the Quran actually frames this whole thing as a training exercise in something called taqwa. Now that's a big word, but you can think of it as this cultivated self-awareness, this self-restraint that allows you to not be run by your appetites. It's like a month-long spiritual boot camp where you prove to yourself over and over again that the bear doesn't win. You're the one in charge.
So, this idea of mastering your hunger, it can be taken to its most dramatic and, frankly, its most politically powerful extreme.
I mean, what happens when a person doesn't just master their hunger for a day, but actually weaponizes their own suffering for an idea that could literally cost them their life? Well, that is the essence of the hunger strike.
And history is just filled with these incredible examples. I mean, think about Gandhi. His fasts were so powerful that the entire British Empire had to take notice of this one small man simply refusing to eat. Or in 1981, the Irish Republican Bobby Sands died after 66 days without food, and his death didn't just galvanize a movement, it shook a government to its core.
So you see, the message encoded in every hunger strike, in every chosen fast, it's fundamentally the same. It's this powerful declaration to the world, and maybe even more so to yourself, that says, I am more than my appetites. My principles are more real than my pain. I am not the bear.
Okay, but all of this, it leads us to a really fascinating and maybe kind of uncomfortable question about the world we live in right now. I mean, think about it. Liberal capitalism is amazing at what it does. It's just unbelievably efficient at producing abundance and satisfying our every desire. But what does that do to the part of us that isn't the bear? What happens to our themos when there aren't any great struggles, when everything is just comfortable?
This is what really worried Fukuyama. He had this fear that a society that's perfect at satisfying every desire would create what he called the last men. These are people who are safe, comfortable, and yeah, technically free, but they risk nothing because they don't believe in anything big enough to risk anything for. Their thymos is just withered away, and they become creatures of pure comfort who, spiritually speaking, start to look a whole lot less like free humans and a whole lot more like a society of well-fed bears.
And just like that, this huge philosophical concept, it lands right back in our laps as something personal, something we deal with every single day.
Look, the point here is not that comfort is bad or that having desires is evil. Not at all. The point is that a life that is governed only by appetite, a life where you never choose the harder path over the easier one, is missing something absolutely essential to being human.
You know, the bear can't choose to have that really awkward, difficult conversation instead of just saying silent. It can't stick to a principle when it starts to cost something. It can't do that small daily act of discipline that's really just a quiet way of reminding yourself that you are, in fact, in charge of you. Only you can do that.
So that power, that uniquely human capacity for choice, the ability to prove that you are bigger than your immediate wants, it's always there for you, in big ways and in small. That is the freedom the bear will never ever know. And really, the only question left is, what are you going to do with it?